Hello, everybody. Welcome back, or welcome to the Seedling Podcast. We are your hosts, Simone and
Mia. And today we are joined by Adam, who is a content creator, mental health advocate, and newly author. Welcome, Adam.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we've been wanting to have you on for like so long, and it's only just now like manifested into reality, which is just such a blessing. Thank you.
It's going to be such a cute little episode, all about how to find purpose and freedom in your life.
Yeah.
So, would you like to start with your quote or poem of choice?
Yes, I would love to. The quote I've chosen is, "We usually find it easier to stay in familiar pain because it's more comfortable than moving into unfamiliar pain," which is something that's been coming up a lot for me and something really echoing, I think, what we were just speaking about, because there's often going to be pain in the life we live in or the life we're going to choose to live, but we often just recycle the pain that's so comfortable, whether that be our job choice, whether that be the relationship we're in, because we know that pain, and the unfamiliar pain is like scary, right? So yeah, that's my quote at the moment.
Love that.
Yeah, that really resonates with what we were talking about before we start this episode as well, because we were just talking about like, I don't know, working like jobs that you feel like you've come to a dead end at or like whatever, and just like, yeah, kind of coming complacent because it's familiar, right? And then just making the jump, like it is scary because it's unfamiliar, but like ultimately you just got to make that jump.
You got to make the
You know
jump.
what I mean? Yeah.
It's so important. So, do you feel as if you found purpose within your life?
Good question.
Jumping
We're
right
going
in.
deep straight away. I was like, hello. Is my life full of any purpose? I hope so. Yeah, no, it's a good question. I feel like I've come to believe now that I don't think my life has a specific purpose. And I think sometimes we maybe get too lost in finding what is our purpose, because I don't know, I kind of like the idea that actually in some ways I am completely insignificant, right? I'm like a speck of dust floating through space. So it's like trying to find the purpose of my life almost makes me feel really important, but at the same time I have to feel important, right? Because I'm living out my own human existence. So the way I've kind of reframed purpose for myself is, how can I find purpose every day? So there could be a new purpose every day. Today, maybe my purpose was to come here and show up with like the best energy I could. Whenever I'm in London, one of my purposes is always to try and connect with people like on the train, because it can be such a bleak place, London, sometimes, because people are so scared of connection and we're so disconnected. So my purpose today was this, and on the train make sure I smile at least 3 people, or try and strike up a conversation with someone, even if it's really small, like, oh, is that coffee any good from that place? Because I just like watching people break their state quickly. So yeah, I think I was looking in the past for my purpose, and I feel like it can be quite a losing battle, I guess, sometimes, because also then we're putting all of our emphasis on that this one thing. When we find it, then we're going to be happy. And what if my purpose is to have X job or X amount of money, and then when I get there I'm not fulfilled? Like, it's like, then what? So yeah, for me, I think my purpose currently is to be here and be present. So yeah, I think I found it because I'm here.
Oh,
That is so
I love
beautiful.
it. Yeah, because I always hear of people like, or even me myself, like when I give myself a certain goal or purpose, like first of all, sometimes that can change as well, and then I just feel so lost because
true.
I'm like, hold on, this was like, I wanted to do this for so long, and now it's 2 years down the line. I'm like, actually, this doesn't give me fulfillment anymore. Like, and then you're just so hard on yourself, and you're not allowing yourself to change, and you're putting yourself like on just one path that you have to go down. But actually, like, yeah, if you take it step by step, day by day, it's just like, well, actually, that can change every single day, every single minute, hour, whatever. Like, that's just such a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah, and also I think the difficulty sometimes, I say this to a lot of people, is like often our purpose or like what we want to achieve is a future projection of something we haven't experienced yet, right? So if it's like, well, I really want to like travel the world, or I really want to meet the man/woman of my dreams, or I really want to have that house, but how do we know how that's going to feel when we've never had it? So often what I ask myself and other people is like, what feeling do you think having that is going to bring you? And if you can identify that feeling, then asking yourself, well, how do I think I can feel that today? Even just a little bit of it. Because if we chase a feeling, I feel like it's a lot more achievable, especially if it's a feeling we felt, than it is to chase something that's, whether it's material or not, but it's something we've never experienced. Like, how do I know it's going to make me happy? Does that make sense?
That makes
So
perfect
true.
sense. What the hell? You're already
Yeah.
saying facts.
You're really putting it in the
Do you know
perfect
what I mean?
nutshell.
Yeah.
So true. I think everyone always chases one specific thing, especially if it's like a materialistic thing, like a specific house or a specific car or a pet or a person. It's just that thing that you attach so much value and meaning and feeling to, when actually it's just that feeling that you want. It's not actually that. And you think once you've gotten it, you're going to feel that way and that you're not ever going to want anything else. And that's why you see a lot of people that are just rich and unhappy, because they're not actually just present and happy with what they have. They're always constantly wanting more. And there's nothing wrong with being rich. I'm just saying, like, I just feel like it's sometimes you can't, it's a never winning battle. Is that even the
like you can be rich
really
in so many different ways.
Exactly.
Like you can be financially rich but then have like be very poor in like your community or like whatever, you know what I mean? Like you can be rich in so many different ways. And yeah, I just feel like you have so much insight and so much like wisdom, and obviously, I mean, for those of you who don't know yet, Adam is releasing a book, which we're going to get onto a little bit later on. But do you just want to share like your kind of last couple of like 10, 15 years of like how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to do that quickly. But
No,
I'll try my
just,
best.
yeah,
No, I'm
no,
joking,
just
yeah.
like...
Cool, yeah. So basically, I guess the catalyst for me to start this work on my own self-development, let's say, was as a teenager, I lost my father. And it's really interesting to sit here now, let's say 14 years later, and be able to say I'm so grateful for that experience, because I don't believe if that happened, I would be sitting here right now talking about these things and have lived the life that I'm living.
Yeah.
So this kind of taking this adversity and using it as a gift, like chapter 2 of my book is called The Gift of Adversity, because I really believe most of the most inspirational people in my life, when you look back at their story, it started with a moment of adversity. So I know it's hard to feel it in the moment, but adversity will one day, if you allow it and harness it, will become a gift and a lesson to you. And it was losing him that made me kind of really wake up to this idea of the impermanence of life, right? I think we don't often reflect on how life is finite. We live each day as if we're going to be here forever, even though we might say things like, you only live once, and like the quotes are great, but are we actually ever embodying it? And when I woke up to that, I was like, I don't know, the kind of capitalist society just felt like such an illusion, and I felt like the walls were just ripped away from me. And I kind of had this question to myself, like, why would I spend every day working at a job I don't like, you know, not being in control of my own time? And like, just basically, I was watching people in my family or like people older than me always moaning about their work. Years going by, I've seen like some of my friends now for 10 years still moaning about the job they talked about moaning about 10 years ago. So I really felt like life kind of became a bit of a game. Like one of my favorite quotes is, life's a game, just play it right. Because I got no handouts. I didn't have any, like, my dad's inheritance to me was £32. It wasn't like, you know, all of a sudden I was this privileged kid that had money to do what I want. So I left my hometown. I went to university, and then I met my now wife there, and we decided we wanted to travel the world, but we didn't have much money. So we kind of packed a backpack. We took a £10 bus from London to Amsterdam, and said to friends and family, like, maybe we'll be back in 2 weeks, maybe we'll be back in 2 months, maybe we'll be back in 2 years. And once we got to Amsterdam and spent some time there, we decided we wanted to hitchhike to India. That was now the goal. That was the purpose of that time. We were like, we don't want to use an airplane, we don't want to use a train, and we don't want to use a bus. We want to rely on the kindness of strangers to pick us up. We just stand there with our thumb and see how far we get. And the journey lasted about 5.5 years. We were on the road. The thing people often ask, well, how did you afford it? Well, first of all, when you take out the cost of travel,
that's like one of the biggest costs.
Right, it's free. And I think in the first 3 years, we only used paid accommodation twice on 2 nights. So we had our tent, we'd literally wild camp everywhere from beautiful mountains to the back of gas stations. We used this amazing website called Couchsurfing, where people host people for free in their home as like a cultural exchange, which was also a really important part when I reflected and was writing the book on my journey, because we were probably hosted by, I don't know, over 1,000 people across 27 countries. And when you're in someone's home, you're really getting an insight into how they live. And when you grow up in the same area and live there the same time, your real world the view of what's possible is probably potentially quite slim, because, you know, people in communities maybe live similar, they have similar ideas, they may be from the same religion. Whereas we're like staying with, I don't know, a group of students in Germany, and then like a family in Albania, and then a single guy in Portugal. And I kind of felt like it was a bit of a research project of like taking all the bits from people's lives I'd seen to kind of create my perfect life. And going back to the purpose part, we actually never even ended up reaching India on this trip, because when we got to we were in 3 months in Turkey. My mental health took an absolute battering, which we can probably go into later, and I needed a break. So we decided, you know, shall we keep pushing? Shall we like try and get through Pakistan? Like, we're so close, we could get there in 3 months if we just wanted to do it. And we kind of realized in that moment the purpose of us trying to hitchhike from Amsterdam to India all of a sudden just became irrelevant. Like, everything we'd harnessed and learned on the way, we were completely different people to 5 years before. India was just the destination, but the feeling we were chasing, we'd kind of already found. So went home, went back to England, and then after kind of, doing some work on myself, recouping, ended up flying to India a couple of years later, spent a year in India, and then came back and decided to buy a narrowboat, which I now live on, and is one of the blessed reasons why I'm able to meet people like you guys, because I started a channel documenting my life on the boat, talking about mental health and this kind of stuff. And yeah, that's kind of a short overview of why I'm here and what went down.
What a beautiful story, and so inspiring. I'm in awe of the fact that you guys just set off on that journey together and made it work and listened to each other, and also just being in different cultures and completely trusting other humans is really hard for a lot of people. And the fact that you made that, well, you didn't make it worked for you, and you were open-hearted, and just really inspiring, inspiring.
A lot of the time when you come with an open heart, you're received with an open heart as well, and I think that's so beautiful. And like, isn't that saying that's like, it's not the destination, it's the journey, and that literally is like, you've just embodied that. Like, it is really the journey, and that's just like so amazing.
It's funny because that quote literally is the perfect destination. I try not to use it because, you know, people say it to people, and everyone's like, yeah, I know, I've heard that one before, and I'm like, it's always how I want to end the story, but I'm like, no, come on, I'll just let it land. So I'm really happy that you said it.
Like, immediately, like, as soon as you said that, I was like, yes, it's the journey that counts. I love it.
But we really proved that on the road, and it was like talking about being scared of other people. I've always had this weird inherent belief that most people, I think in the book I describe it as like 95% of people I believe are good. I actually believe everyone is good, and I have compassion for even people that do really bad things, simply because my personal belief is we are doing the best we can with the resources we have. So often I don't believe people are born evil. Maybe they've been indoctrinated in some way, maybe they've had a set of experiences that have happened to them, but we often want to view other people only through our lens and our experiences, and we'll never be able to relate to why their mind and their life ended up the way it did. And, you know, you'd have this idea of like stranger danger. People would say like, don't accept like candy from a stranger, don't do this with a stranger, never get like in a car with a stranger. So I was like, I just want to blast this out of the water and just only get in cars with strangers for like 5 years. And and what I always find interesting is the main question people ask me when I tell them about this journey is like, did you have any bad experiences? And I get it, right, because it's intriguing, and there are a couple of hairy experiences, but I just even find that interesting that no one's brain seems to go to like, what was the best experience you had with a stranger? And even that is, we're always seeking for like the risk or like the challenge or the negative, which is all still part of it. But I have quite a strict rule. Like, I don't watch the news. I don't have any news alerts on my phone. I try and avoid it as much as possible, which I know is an ignorant view, and one that I'm not saying everyone should have. I've got friends that are activists that are fighting the causes that need fighting. It's not my personal journey. But I think by removing the fear that is so constantly fed to us, and I still hear about everything. As someone that doesn't have a TV, doesn't watch the news, and has all news alerts, you still know everything going on, by the way. So you also don't need to watch it every day at 5 o'clock and read about it, because you're still going to know what's going on.
It's going to travel to you some point.
Exactly.
Simone and I the same as well. I don't really watch the news.
It's just too much flooding of negativity. Like, I need some peace.
No, it's true.
And it's tough because you don't want to be ignorant, but at the same time, you need to look after your mental health. Just going back to what you're saying about your hitchhiking and just traveling in general, is there anything that sticks out to you right now that you feel like you learn about yourself along the way, like any big lesson?
Good question. I think for me, I mean, yeah, hundreds are flooding into my head, but one that sits right now, I guess the idea of both human kindness and community, and how I do really believe we're bred to believe like humans are evil, the world's fucked, all of this, but actually on a person-to-person level, I think people are good. And actually, knowing I was coming here on the Underground, I was thinking about this, and I got off the Underground at Vauxhall, and I heard this woman run at the door going, hi, hi, hi. And I had my AirPods in, and I dropped my AirPods case on the seat, and she ran off the train to give me my AirPod case, full well knowing that then the doors were going to close, she'd have to wait for the next train, which I know is only a few minutes, but in London, people are in a rush, right? And I was just like, thank you so much. Like, this means like a lot. I don't really care about the AirPod case, like that's replaceable.
It's the act,
but on a human level, this means so much to me, and I felt like it was a real sign, knowing I was coming here today to talk about this stuff, that actually kindness is around us if we open our eyes, because we were tribal people living in communities around our own species, and I think it's really important for regulation to be around other humans. Yeah. But what I find fascinating about London or cities is you get on the Underground, say it's rush hour, you are like, shoulder to shoulder with all people of the same species for you, but it feels so dysregulating because you don't even share as much as a smile. And it's like, how have we gone from living in tribes as a community to being like around 100 people of the same species and literally acting like, I don't know, I'm in some vortex and no one else around me exists. So this idea of being on the road, we were gifted, I guess the main thing we were gifted with is time. Like we didn't have plans, we were just doing what we were doing, and when you have time, you're open to whatever people and experiences come your way. And I guess though, for me now, it's about how can we find that in the cities, how can we find that in our daily lives. I don't believe everyone needs to go and like hitchhike around the world to do it, the same way I can be in London now and make it my aim to say hello to at least 3 people on the train. And sometimes they look at you like you're a weirdo, or like they think I'm going to mug them, but that's part of their journey, and I have I get it, it's not their fault either, we're bred with fear. But I really believe, like, I don't know, we can actually start a revolution by saying hello to people.
It's literally, it's
I really think it's that. It's like the smallest steps have a ripple effect. Make someone's day, make someone else's day. So yeah, I think the human connection part is really a core value of mine.
No, I love that so much. And like, I just resonate with everything you said, because I studied social anthropology, which is basically like the study of humans and like how they form, gift giving, all of these different like things that humans do. And literally when I first started the course, the first thing our like lecturer asked us to do, like the first exercise was like, do you think that human nature is inherently good or bad? And like, not a shock, the majority of the room said bad. And you can, literally. And I was like, am I a weirdo here? Because I feel like everyone's good. Like, do you know what I mean? Obviously, like, you can, get changed, like your experience, and when you have like a bad upbringing and stuff, that could make you have like a different outlook on life. But like, I do think that everyone is born like in a beautiful, like with kindness in their heart and like openness in their heart and community. And I just, I love everything that you have said about like community and human connection, because I think, I mean, I am on that 9 to 5 like grind on that train with those people, and like sometimes I'll literally like make like, if I catch someone's eye, I'll like try and smile and they'll be like as if like they're like, oh, like the intimacy of like looking someone in the eye, and I'm like, and everyone's like looking away and not even looking at each other. I'm like, but hold on, we're literally like next to each other, we're opposite each other, why aren't we looking? Do you know what I mean?
100%.
And like everyone's just like on their phones and stuff. I've tried, like, I remember at the start I would bring on like my knitting and stuff, and I'd like knit and like try and, I don't know, like if I saw someone else doing something, I'm like, oh, look at us doing stuff on the train, like stuff like that. But like it ended up taking up too much space, like whatever. But yeah, just like little interactions are just so like important, and I feel like they change your day. Like literally, even just like a little interaction, like going to a coffee shop and someone's like, oh, like your, I don't know, lip gloss or something like that. You're just like, giving a compliment. I love you. I literally love you. And then you just like, your whole energy changes,
Word. And people are so shocked by it as well, because it's just not normal really for a lot of people in the city. When I was in London the other day. I was going down an escalator and I saw a woman wearing the same coat as me going up, and I was going down, and I was like, wearing the same, and she was like, yeah, and I was like, yeah, oh my God. I wasn't going to for a second. I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And she was just so cute and so beautiful. So if you're seeing this, love you.
And the best part about that is anyone that would have seen the interaction, it also would have made their day.
Yeah. So true.
Actually, my
And, like,
wife
changed
the
the way
other
they
day was in
thought.
London, and she messaged me saying, because she brought our dog down as well, and I went my separate way, and she said, on the way to the station, everyone was on the way to work, and when they got to the escalator, she like signaled him to come up, and he jumped up in her arms, and she said it was so nice because going down, all of a sudden everyone on the escalator was like beaming with a smile, you know. And it's these really, really simple, in the book I talk about these like few questions that you can incorporate into your day, because I also like, I think I want everything to feel really relatable for people. And like I say, if traveling the world for 5 years made me realize I just have to come back and smile at people on the tube, just start smiling at people on the tube. You don't have to do the first part, you know, like all the lessons I feel like I've learned are just really base level things. So this idea of anytime now I'm in a supermarket and someone's like scanning my shopping, saying to the person behind the counter, like, how are you?
Yeah,
or
so important.
have you got any plans after work? Humanizing the experiences we have with other humans that can be so transactional.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, again, you see them break their state. And like actually having a chat with someone is so integral, I think, to what we need as a society.
Yeah.
I love you saying breaking their state. Like, I knew exactly what you meant by that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never thought about it like that. But you can literally see someone be like switch on almost. Like, oh,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, come alive.
yeah.
Well,
like
I'll tell you a
speaking to
funny
me.
story. Sorry to
No,
interrupt
yeah.
you. A few months ago, I was having a bit of a down period, right? And I'm like I try and live as authentically as possible, and I'm extremely vulnerable. Vulnerable meaning like I'll share my heart with anyone that wants to hear it. So if someone asks me how I am and I'm not feeling good, I refuse to be like, yeah, I'm good, you.
Yeah.
And I noticed a few times when I went to the supermarket over that period, if the person would say, oh, how are you? I'd go, oh, not very good. And they would go, oh, good.
Oh.
Because they're
just
asking out of this kind of mechanical thing that they don't realize what they're asking, and they can't hear the reply.
Yeah.
It's just so that one of two things would happen. They'd either go, oh, good, and it would carry on, and I'd love it because I just think this is such a funny interaction to show how, again, disassociated we are from life. Or they'd be really like, oh my God, and I'd be like, oh no, don't worry, I don't need help or anything, but you asked, so I wanted to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I'm just being truthful.
Yeah, and I just found that so fascinating that sometimes people wouldn't even register the reply, because how often are we like, how are you? Yeah, good, thanks. You? Yeah,
It's
good.
that
actually care.
But there's no substance to it. I always like this idea of asking someone, how are you, twice. So it's like, oh, how are you? Yeah, good, thanks. You? Yeah, good. Oh, cool. How are you?
Yeah.
And then you get completely different. Often people are like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's like-
How
So
are you
glad you
really?
asked.
How are
Yeah.
you really,
Because
though?
it is, it's asking with intention, I think. And I think
Exactly.
intention in anything we do and say is really important, you know, and not asking someone how you are if you don't really want to know how they are. I'd rather not be asked, kind of thing. So I just thought that was a funny little anecdote.
Oh, I love that.
So true.
Yeah. And you talk about such a big variety of things, like on your Instagram, for example. We follow you on Instagram, love all your content. Love it. And among that, you also talk about, like you just mentioned, like mental health and like the kind of struggles you have, like as a person living in the world, I guess. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And have you, like, I don't know, how do you deal with kind of when you are feeling like a little bit lower?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Good question.
Bit of like a broad question, but
No, it's
talk
cool.
about
Well, my main, you know, everyone in some way is probably suffering with the mental health, but there's specifics, right? So my specifics tend to show up in intrusive thoughts, which when I learnt more about, realized I had when I was a really, really young child. And I feel most people maybe know what intrusive thoughts are, but if not, they're these like unwanted, invasive thoughts that come at you and you feel like you have no control over them. And when I remember being a child, I would have intrusive thoughts in the sense of like, I could be like in the back of a car and we'd be driving on the motorway and my mind would be like, what would happen if you just like swung this car door open right now? And I didn't want to do it and I didn't do it, but my mind would like, go on, like, what do you reckon? And then it would manifest like I could be on a train platform and I'd be like, what would happen if I just like threw myself on the tracks when the train was coming? And I didn't want to do it. I wasn't suicidal, but my mind was really starting to like take over some of my thoughts. And I'd really want to like run away from my mind, but I'd literally physically like run, but it comes with you. And then over time it got worse where I could be walking home from school and my mind would be like, if you don't run and touch that lamppost in the next 20 seconds, your mum will drop dead. And I'd run to the lamppost and I'd touch it. And it was kind of kept at bay for a while. And then, yeah, it would kind of come and it would go. And over the years, it got quite bad, or I felt like I was just a complete slave to my mind. So I guess went on a journey of trying to discover the inner workings of the mind. I read a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, who introduced this idea of being the observer of your thoughts. And when you become the observer and you kind of take, let's say, a bird's eye view perspective of your mind, it's like if I say my mind is controlling me, if it's my mind, then who is the one that has the mind? So it's like, this is my arm, this is my jumper, these are my legs, this is my mind. So who's the my? Like, who is it? And people talk about whether it's the self or the spirit or the whatever you want to call it or believe in, your higher self. And for me, it was really about tapping into that part of me that can look at my mind as almost like a tangible piece of muscle and learn how to train it. You know, we talk so much about physical health and training our muscles. Well, the mind is a muscle. So just like we need to do bicep curls for our arms or running for our legs, I really put time in to train my mind, and, you know, still have periods of time where life's going to shake you up. But I think the more tools you build and the more in tune you are with your own thoughts and mind, the easier it is to then kind of like combat them. Which, yeah, you know, you get through reading, all the stuff, the meditating, the journaling. But even if that stuff's not for you, it's the introspection, I think, the being comfortable with the uncomfortable, the not running away from your thoughts. I was reading a study the other day around, they got loads of people in a room and they just wanted them to sit with their thoughts for like 15 minutes. But if at any point they didn't want to be there anymore and leave, they'd press a button and they'd have to get an electric shock and then they could leave. And it was so fascinating because prior to knowing what they were doing, they were asked, could someone pay you to give yourself an electric shock? And I think like 90% of people said no, like wouldn't want that. Yet when put in a room and offered to be alone just for 15 minutes with their thoughts, something crazy like 70% of them pressed the button to leave. Even though before they wouldn't have been paid for it, but it was so confronting sitting with their own thoughts. And a large percentage of people that did it were men. And as a man myself, I think even more so, my vulnerability is something I want to share as a gift to other men, because like I've got a lot of male friends and I feel like I'm the one that they maybe go to if like they want to speak about this stuff, because, you know, there is more shame around being vulnerable as a man. There is more shame around talking so openly about your thoughts and your feelings, but I don't know, I feel quite comfortable doing it. And yeah, I think there's a real kind of epidemic of it changing a bit, but of men not feeling manly enough if they are going to be this open.
No, I completely agree. What do you think has made you be comfortable with sharing that? Like, obviously, you know, there's, for example, I know an example would be like someone who isn't comfortable with sharing that is because maybe they had like someone in their childhood be like, no, you can't do that because it's not manly enough, or like whatever. What kind of do you think, is it like the internal work that you've done that's made you feel comfortable with sharing, or is it just something you've always had within yourself?
Ironically, I think it was being raised by two women because my dad left when I was so young and I was raised by my mum and sister. So I was raised in a house of tears and Spice Girls. So like I think it was great vibes. Yeah. But yeah, my mum is very emotional. I definitely get that from her. You know, there's good and bad parts about being vulnerable and emotional, but I think it was displayed to me from so young. Like it wasn't that it's okay, it was just what it was, you know. And like going through a lot in childhood, I kind of, yeah, I mean, I had a nice childhood, but you have to grow up a bit faster, you know. Like I wanted to be a support for my mum, and my sister and I are almost like three friends in a way. So I think when you're just around these experiences, it came really naturally. And I actually, now again, it's another gift. Like if my dad didn't leave so young and I wasn't raised by two women, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here and able to just talk about my feelings for an hour, right? But it has other parts. Like I've actually been on a separate journey of trying to move like more into my masculine, because we all have masculine and feminine inside of us, right? And I've really enjoyed recently, you know, going to like men's circles and doing men's work, and it's like half talk about your feelings and then half like beating drums and like fighting each other. And it feels like primal and it feels tribal and it feels important actually, because I think, you know, you talk and talk and talk about your feelings, and we were talking about this earlier, but you want to like feel them and you want to embody them. And I did this amazing workshop with this group of guys about anger, and everyone had to go around and talk about their experience with anger. And I was thinking like, I'm not an angry guy. And I was like, God, like, I don't know what to say. Like all these guys had such deep stories about their anger. I kind of expressed a bit, and then everyone stood up, and we're all in this big circle, and this guy's like beating a drum, and he was like, if anyone wants to, you can kind of go in the middle of the circle and like just express any anger you want. And like I watched a couple of the guys do it, and I'm there like, no, this is a bit out of my comfort zone. Like I'm loving watching these guys do it, but I'm not going to do it. And a friend of mine was in the circle, and he looked across at me and kind of like gave me a nod as if like, you need to do this. So I remember going in, like falling to my knees, and I'm just like punching the ground, and I'm like roaring from my stomach. I can only describe it as like a roar. And I don't know what came out of me. It was like an out-of-body experience. And then I stood up, went to join the circle again, and it was like an out-of-body experience. I fell flat on my face in the dirt and just like cried for like 20 minutes while like these two guys had their hands on my back. And I don't know what it was I released in that moment, but afterwards I honestly felt like some anger in me that I don't know if I was suppressing it. I was reframing it as like, I'm good. I got the tools. I'm chill. Like, I don't need to get angry. Like, you know, anger's like means you can't control your emotions. But I think it's a necessary emotion, right?
Yeah.
If done in a controlled way. And since then, I like getting angry.
Yeah,
That's so
divine rage.
good. Yeah. Rage expressed healthily is so important. I think, when you see like toxic rage and aggressiveness, it's like, oh, I don't want to be like that, so I'm just going to frame it in a controlled manner and not show that I'm angry. But actually, it's so important to express your rage just for your, honestly, for your bodily health as well. I feel like when you just repress so much, it like really, I don't know, I feel like I just feel a lot of tension in my stomach, and I have to express it now. So
Yeah.
I think it's
great.
natural as well. If you look at us again as a species, like whenever I see my dog, and if we're getting in like a little spat with another dog, or even just has a moment of like uncertainty, straight after, the first thing he does is shake, like the dog shakes. Most animals do that actually. If you look afterwards, they'll have some kind of shake or a way to get it off. And if you look at us and we're babies or infants, if we are angry, we'll have a tantrum, we'll stamp our feet, and then all of a sudden, what do people start saying to us? Oh, you're a big boy now, like you don't need to act like that. Or like, you know, like we're in public, you shouldn't be acting like that. And it's literally cultured out of us to express our emotions, particularly through movement, because it's like you're embarrassing yourself, you know. And you know, I love it. You see a kid in the supermarket and he's on his front and he's tantruming and he's banging, and he's like, yeah, he needs to let it out. But we're told again and again, like, it's not right. My wife and I always talk about the dream would be one day, if we have children, that there'd be like a cupboard in our house that we'd call like the rage room, and it's like soundproof. And if like me and my wife have a little argument, or the kids are in a bad mood, or something needs to happen, we like go in the rage room and you go and you just scream and you release it, and then you just come back out into the house, rather than like carrying the energy with you, you know, day to day. I don't think that would work on the boat, because we barely have enough space for both of us to do work, but one day.
Yeah, it can be somewhere like in nature or something, like break some sticks, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
throw some mud around, some leaves. I feel like I could do it, to be honest.
So just thinking about your platform and social media, being a content creator, how do you feel it's been for you? Have you faced any criticisms in showing a life less ordinary than most?
Yeah, I think I've learned it's definitely part of the job to accept criticism and have people say some like really nasty things to you.
Oh God.
And it's funny because at first it got to me a bit, but genuinely now it really doesn't.
That's good.
There's an experience that I had quite recently where I had 2 messages in my like inbox where like the spam stuff goes to if it's not someone you know or follow. And they were 2 quite like nasty messages from 2 different men who I didn't know, who like, you know, talking about your appearance or like, you know, just going in at you. And I never replied to them, but I decided on this occasion to reply to both of them. And I just put a thumbs up emoji to each of them. And then the most fascinating thing happened. Individually, they both replied something along the lines of, oh my God, I never thought you'd read this. I'm sorry. And I thought, how fascinating. Like, I took a moment and thought, isn't it funny that now you know I've read it, you hold guilt about it? So I asked one specific guy, I'm really intrigued why you wanted to say it if you didn't think I was going to read it. And he said, I wake up every morning depressed, and I go to the toilet, and I spend my first 15 minutes when I'm sitting on the toilet abusively messaging people to get rid of my negativity.
Oh my God.
And I said, thank you so much for sharing that with me. And then wrote my number. And I said, here's my number if you ever want to talk.
Oh, wow.
And I think what the great reminder was for me of like, it's, you know, the age of saying, it's never about me. Like, I've really embody and believe that. Like, people saying bad things about me, it's never really about me. Not that I'm like holier than thou. Obviously, if someone wants to call me out on something, I love if I share an opinion and someone disagrees. I talk about in the book near the end, I've likely contradicted myself many times in the book, and I'm so happy about that, because I don't have any answers. I don't come here from a place of like, I know. Like, I don't ever want to be the knower, because then you stop becoming the student, you stop learning, right? And yeah, I encouraged him to share that with me, and yeah, it really embodied this idea that it's never about you. People are struggling, and when people are struggling, they're doing the best they can, again, with the resources they have, and they're just looking for an outlet. So yeah, the criticism in that regard, I can handle it.
Wow.
Yeah, and you said something which I love, and you also talk about it in your book, which I think we're going to now talk a little bit more about, but about being the knower, and about kind of just saying, like, all I know is that I know nothing. And I love that saying as well. Also, author called Osho talks about it in, like, The Mustard Seed, and, like, he has so many other cool books about just being, like, a learner, a student for the rest of your life, because you're always learning, and as soon as you know, you are no longer open to, like, learning. And I think that's so important, especially when it comes to, like, people and community and, like, yourself, because you always just need to be, like, a witness and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a new way of looking at things, and this is a new way of, like, interacting with someone. And I think that's, like, yeah, should be at, like, the core of, like, any human interaction, just being completely open to, like, what someone else has to say, even if previously your belief system was, like, different. If you're just open, like, you're just constantly learning new things, and it's, like, the best thing ever.
Yeah.
100%. And I was so honored when I had the opportunity to write a book, but one of my main things is I would never want it to come across as, like, you know, it's not like a self-help book. I'm not like a guru. I don't think
10 steps
for me
to...
it's not like, I don't look at people in that way. That the Noah part came when I was in India. I lived in an ashram for a month, and the guru there, to me, has become like one of the biggest inspirations in my life. And to me, he felt like one of the wisest men I'd ever met. And he would give us a lecture every day, and he'd start the beginning of every lecture by saying, just so I want everyone to remember, I know nothing. And I remember being like, how can this guy say he knows nothing? Like, I think he knows everything. And he'd go on to say, the more a person thinks they know, the less they know. And it, like, hit me in my soul, and I vowed again I've tried to remove the words like no from my vocabulary. I've tried to remove words like should and shouldn't from my vocabulary. It should be you could, you know, not you should. Like, I can't tell you what you should do. I tell you what you could do. I can say my hope for you is X, rather than like I know you should do X.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly as you just perfectly articulated it. Once you become the knower, you become closed. And once you're closed, I mean, how many of us have an idea now that probably us 10 years ago would have had a completely different view on? I feel like I'm on like version 4 of my belief system in 30 years, if not more. So, and I've definitely been the knower at times. I think part of when I found the spiritual world, I definitely became the knower. You know, I was like, anyone that wasn't vegetarian, anyone that wasn't meditating, anyone that was using like chemical products, I was like I thought I knew the world, you know. And look at me now. I was vegetarian for 8 years and no longer am. I would love to say I use only sustainable products, but I don't. You know, I'm just like, I've changed so much, and I love that change. And with that change shows me again that I don't know myself yet, and we never really do. And I don't know what my views, I might be vegetarian again next week and my view will change again. But I think it's dangerous, I think, actually, to become a knower. And that's really the message I wanted to get across in the book. Is it's essentially 10 life lessons that I feel like I've learned and I'm learning, and delivered through experiences and stories. And I hope that they resonate with people in some way. And if they don't, that's also brilliant. And if you disagree with them, that's even better. Right? I'd love to hear about it, because then I can learn more. So no knowing here.
I love that. I love that you're so willing to just hear everyone's opinion, no matter what. And even what you were saying with the abusive messages from those 2 guys, and you just receiving them and being open and being kind back, I think is just so wonderful and shows your growth. And just, a massive inspiration to me and our listeners, I hope. But yeah, I guess like what we were saying just now, I think in the wellness community, when you start to almost like radicalize your opinion, you get very obsessed with the perfect, and like, no, everything has to be non-toxic. You know, I can't have XYZ in my food or on my skin. If I can't eat it, I can't put it on my, like all these different things. I can't wear that, I can't do this. And it's like, not everyone has it all together. And that's something that also you need to remember when you're watching people online that you follow. It's like, not everyone has everything sorted. And yeah, they might be showing you a better way to live more naturally, but that's not to say that they're not going to go and pick up a Greggs on the way to, I don't know, somewhere.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the studio. And that's definitely never a crime, just saying.
Yeah, it's not a crime.
So yeah, just embracing, I don't even want to say imperfection, but embracing everything and loving everything, I think is a really great place to be. Yeah,
I agree. And I also just think it's so crazy. Obviously, you're talking about the guru that had such a big impact on you, and you were saying how, oh, well, he's such like the wisest man I've ever met. How could he not know anything? And I'm sure loads of people feel that way about you, but that follow you, who are like, oh my God, this guy is like knows so much, has so much wisdom, feels so like centered within himself. Like how, you know, like I feel like he knows so much. But I think that's just that's the beauty of your book, is that you're just like, well, this is just something like take it or leave it kind of thing. It's not like, here, this is what you have to do to gain freedom, or this is how like you can live your life. It's just like, well, these are my experiences. These are the experiences of people that I've met, and like stories that I want to tell. Like if this resonates, take it. If it doesn't, then that's fine too. And I think that's just, yeah, if you guys want that, then get the book, read it.
Yeah, please do. One other thing I'll mention about the book that's been really beautiful for me, maybe should have mentioned this more in community, but living on a canal boat in the UK, traveling around the UK, the community on the canals is incredible. And I've been so inspired by other boaters, often because we're living slightly alternatively. It's like I'm so fascinated by the stories of the people, of how they ended up on the boat, like as I've just shared mine with you over the last hour. So throughout the book, every 10 chapter, at the end of each chapter, there is an extract from another boater who talks on the life lesson that they also learned of how it led them to a boat. And some of these people's life stories, like the amount I've learned from reading the 10 life stories that I've been gifted to put in this book, I mean, that alone is like just been completely... It was also very important because, like I say, I can only talk from my lens and my lessons. And even the people's stories within the book slightly maybe contradict mine and have given me a new way of looking at some of the perspectives of the thing that I've just written about. So it was really important for me to have these other voices as well throughout it, whose stories are just, yeah, I can't wait for you to read them. Obviously, you guys will have to read them when I get your copy.
No, yeah, I love it so much. Well, yeah, just in the name of wrapping up this episode, I feel so grateful to have had you on. You've just, everything you've said has just been so beautiful, and I've like literally just felt in my heart, so thank you. Where can our listeners find you? Where can they find the book? Where can they connect with you? Yeah,
good question. So you can find me on Instagram, which is adam.floatinghome. You can, I'm imagining, pre-order the book when this comes out. Pre-orders for
link
a
in the
book.
bio.
Yeah, there'll be a link in the bio. I'm sure by now, if you go on my Instagram, I'm posting about it all the time because I'm really passionate about. I've spent 14 months pouring my heart, soul, and a lot of tears into this book. And pre-orders really help. So if you do want to support what I'm doing and want to pre-order the book, I'd be really grateful. So yeah, probably everything on my Instagram and in the show notes.
Beautiful.
Amazing. We'll link it
Well,
all below.
Yeah, link it all below. Thank you everybody for listening and watching. Thank you, Adam. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Bye.